So I was online just reading a bunch of like true crime stories, and this one popped up because I just thought it was interesting, especially because of the headline. A little bit of paranormal activity is involved, and yeah, I don't know. Do you guys believe in ghosts? And like, so I don't know why I even read this story, because I feel like when I read things like this before I go to sleep, sometimes it messes with my brain, you know? Sometimes I get really bad sleep paralysis, I get really bad nightmares, or even if I wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, I get super paranoid that there's like a figure in the corner, or there's like a figure behind my shower curtain that's just gonna pop out and jump at me. I try to think that like if there are ghosts that are real, it could be cool, because that means you might have something to look forward to in your afterlife, right? That's like the only positive from that. But have you guys ever had any like ghost encounters or like ghost stories? So I always believed in ghosts because I was raised by my mom. She's Southeast Asian, and Southeast Asian people are very, very superstitious. But I just remember that when I was a kid, one of my earliest memories was that I was crawling and it was just dark, and I felt like everything was gray, hazy, very misty, kind of like in Silent Hill, actually. Like it was like hazy and foggy, and I remember I was just crawling, and in front of me there was just this giant black hole, and I was just like crawling towards it. But then like the black hole sort of looked like a figure. It looked like a black silhouette of someone. I don't know. That was like one of my first memories, and I always thought it was really creepy. So if you guys are wondering why we're talking about ghosts, it kind of has to do with the story that we're about to talk about right now. Her name is Teresita Basa. I might have butchered her name. She is Filipino, and she comes from a decent family background. I think they're, pretty wealthy. She was able to attend college. Wait, so she was born in, when was she born in? Oh, she was born in 1929 in the Philippines. And so imagine being able to go to college back then. You must have, money, right? You must be, well-educated, smart. And she was actually able to come over to the U.S., and I think like initially she wanted to pursue music, but she ended up getting she was able to get a degree as a respiratory therapist. And so she was working in a hospital in Chicago. Now, one day when she was in her apartment catches on fire. And so, the neighbors weren't sure what happened. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe she was cooking. Maybe she wasn't paying attention. Maybe there was like some faulty going on with some wires or something. But when the fire department actually showed up, yes, her apartment was on fire, but for some reason, her body was naked under a mattress. And not only that, they found a knife like stuck inside her, and she was like completely naked. Her clothes were folded neatly right next to where her body was found, which is really odd. At the time of her death, she was about 47 years old. And dude, can you imagine 47 years old? I feel like some of your parents are probably 47 years old. Like, this is horrible. The police weren't really sure what happened. They weren't sure if it was just maybe like some sort of sexual assault, maybe gone bad. Maybe they were trying to cover the crime up with the fire, but it was just really weird. And they didn't really have much evidence because the apartment burned up, the fire burned up everything. And so initially they did think she was sexually assaulted because she was naked. But when the coroner did their examination, they actually found out that nothing actually happened to her sexually. The only evidence that they did have was that for some reason, I guess like she had a piece of paper that had notes on there, and that didn't get burned in the fire, but then everything else did, so it's kind of odd. But the paper said, get tickets for AS. So AS would be initials for someone, but no one knows what AS meant. She didn't have a boyfriend named AS, or maybe like any family with the initials AS, so they had no idea who it was. But yeah, she had a boyfriend, and the boyfriend did not match the initials at all. We're going to talk about, for months later, they actually never solved her case. They didn't really have any good leads or anything. But one day, her coworker named Remy Chua, which is also from the Philippines, and her husband, Joe. So this is where things get a little bit interesting. Not that it's not already interesting, but this is where it gets a little bit interestingly crazy and paranormal. So her coworker had a dream that Teresita told her that she was murdered and she needs to go to the police and tell the police right now. Okay? And so she told her husband this, and they're just kind of like, I don't know what to do with this information. Like, this is just kind of crazy, right? But then what happens is, a second time, the coworker gets possessed again. And the husband said that the coworker was talking in her sleep and was talking Tagalog, because they're Filipino. So the coworker was talking Tagalog and then starts saying crazy weird shit like, I am Teresita, this is me, I am possessing her body. You need to make sure my crime is being solved, But the crazy thing is, when the husband heard the voice the second time, the ghost that took over his wife's body was like, why didn't you go to the police the first time? What are you waiting for? And then the husband's like, well, I don't have any proof. Like, how am I supposed to go to the police? This is kind of weird. And then the possessed spirit says, Alan Showery, I think that's his name, Showery, works in the hospital and murdered me. And the husband's like, okay, And then what happens is the wife wakes up, and apparently she said she had no memory of it. Like, she was just like, what are you talking about? What happened? I was talking in my sleep. Wait, what? And the husband's like, yeah, you were talking in your sleep, and you mentioned this guy, Alan Showery. You said he murdered your coworker, Teresita, and you were possessed by her. And it was crazy. And so, well, what would you guys do if this happened to you? What would you guys do if your significant other was possessed and told you about this crazy murder that happened to their coworker? Would you just be like, I'm just gonna act like that didn't happen? Or would you actually go to the cops? But, by the way, the wife is in her late 30s, and I think the husband, I think he's a doctor actually, but he's in like his, I think 40s, if I remember correctly. So these aren't like kids. These aren't like just like jack off kids who are just like, doing some dumb shit. These are fucking grown ass fucking adults who might be doing some dumb shit. I don't know. They might have made a movie about this. I wouldn't be surprised. Okay. Because there's a lot of I think they made a book out of this too. But yeah. So anyways, so at this point, another important thing happens is that when the wife was possessed, this time we have more evidence. So the spirit mentions Alan Showery. The spirit also mentions that Teresita's jewelry were stolen by Alan Showery, and that, to be more specific, these jewelry were a gift from her dad. They were bought in France. So now we're starting to get some specific details. And again, when the wife wakes up, she has no memory of it. So they decide to both go to the police. And, at first the police is just like, the fuck? Like, your wife was possessed and she doesn't remember, but then it kind of made sense in a way that when they said Alan Showery, they're like, oh, okay, this person's initial is AS, same as the name on the note. Because again, there was a note that was found in the fire that says, buy tickets for AS. And they had no idea who the fuck AS was. And so with the police not having any leads, they decide to investigate this Alan Showery. And so they actually did find that Alan Showery also was a coworker of Teresita. So now the three of them, or the four of them actually. So we have Teresita, the one who is deceased. We have Alan Showery, the one who is being accused of the murder. And then we have the two coworkers who are in this paranormal shit that's going on. And so the police decides to investigate Alan Showery, and they actually found out that he works at the same hospital as all of them. He actually lived nearby. And when they talked to him, they actually found out that he did confirm that he was supposed to fix Teresita's TV that night. And then I think they also had some backup from the other coworkers as well that confirmed that, like, oh yeah, I think Teresita mentioned that Alan Showery was supposed to fix her TV. And so the detective, they went to Alan Showery. They're like, hey, Teresita was murdered, or, something happened to her. We want you to help with our case. And so he agrees to come and get interviewed by the police. He came voluntarily. And they started noticing some cracks in his story, I guess. I wish we had our hands on the interview, but I don't know if they taped interviews back then. This was like in the late 70s. So I don't know if they did or not, but it'd be really cool if they did and we can listen to it. But anyway, so they thought his story was a little bit fishy. So what they decided to do was they decided to question Alan Showery's wife, okay? And so What Alan initially said was that she requested that Teresita wanted to have her TV repaired. Alan Showery, the accused, told the police that he was supposed to repair Teresita's TV, but she canceled. He said that like he was supposed to repair it. He had no tools, I guess. And then he just went home, and he had to go home because he was having some electrical issues back at home that needed to be fixed. And so when the police went to his girlfriend and was just like, hey, like, was Alan here that night? And she's like, yeah, he was here, he was here watching TV. Like, she basically gave like an alibi for him. But she did mention that like, there was no electrical issues that they had. And even if there were any electrical issues, she said that he didn't know how to fix them. So that's basically like a lie that was, that's basically one of the lies that was basically revealed by the girlfriend. And then additionally, the police were like, well, okay, so like, has he given you any new jewelry recently? Like, and she's like, oh yeah, like, he just gifted me this ring and also a pendant as well. And so I guess she let the cops take the ring and the pendant, and they took it to the family members and friends of Teresita, and they actually verified that this is her jewelry. And so now it's like starting to sound too crazy. It's like, well, how did the coworker know about the details about the jewelry, the details with like where the jewelry came from, and how did they know that it was Alan who did it? And so the crazy thing is, this guy actually does end up going to trial. And so the trial was on January 21st in 1979. And what's even more wild is that the judge actually allowed a psychic testimony. Which is crazy because I read this book called Mindhunters. It's about a guy who worked for the FBI, and he basically did like the criminal profiling for them and tracked down serial killers. He also interviewed serial killers as well to help solve his cases. But there was a section in the book where he did mention that like back then in like late 60s, 70s, they actually would have like psychics who would come onto the case and would actually like be a part of it. Like it's actually so crazy. What were the names of the stories again? So we have Teresita. She's the one that's on my screen right here. Oh, whoops, I forgot to cycle through the photos. So this is Teresita Basa. She is the deceased, the one who was murdered in the fire in her apartment. She was found underneath her mattress with a knife in her back. This is her apartment right here. I forgot all about this. Another view of her apartment as well. This is the hospital where they all worked at. This hospital right here looks a little bit crazy. It doesn't look like a hospital, right? And then this is Alan Showery, the one who was being accused, and he is the other coworker. So I love Mindhunters on Netflix. Yes, Mindhunters is so good. I just finished reading the book. Yeah. Imagine a crazy person testifying against you and they're considered legit by the court. Yeah, dude. This is a crazier time. But the crazy thing is this was in 1979. So technically it's not even that long ago. But yeah, like psychics and mediums, imagine having them consult on your crime case. We started getting some background story about what actually happened. And so the story was that he was supposed to fix her TV. Wasn't able to. He went back home, but he decided to return back into her apartment, and she let him in, of course, because he's a familiar face. And that when she turned around to lock her door, that's when he attacked her and murdered her. And basically, he did it because he wanted to rob her, I guess, which is like kind of weird because like, why would you rob your coworker? Why not just rob a random person? But maybe he thought that she had like a lot of possessions or something. I don't know. So he wanted to cover up his crime, the robbery, of course, by making it look like it was like some sort of like rape gone wrong. And so that's why he took off all her clothes, and then he set the apartment building on fire to cover up any evidence. At his first trial, he actually pled not guilty. And because the jury were so deadlocked, it ended up being a mistrial. But while he was waiting for his new trial, he actually ended up just confessing and just pleaded guilty. So he confesses the crime on February 23, 1979. He got 14 years for murder, 4 years each for aggravated arson and robbery. But you know what the crazy thing is? I actually wonder why they decided this, but he was paroled in 1983. So less than 5 years, basically walking around on parole. It's like, how did this happen? But I guess it was because like maybe when he was on the parole board, maybe they kind of felt bad for him because this guy essentially went to jail because like this whole weird psychic shit that went down, you know, and maybe they felt bad for him or something. I don't know, but he did confess though. So I just don't know why he got parole in 1983. He didn't even serve for that long. So they actually like did some follow up on him. He might actually still be alive. Of course, he's going to be like in his 70s. When he was initially released from prison, he lived in California for a little bit, and then moved to Chicago, and then he was like last seen in New York City. So if anyone lives in New York City, he could have been coerced into confessing. That too. I think there was an article that I did find, but I think this was before his second. No. This was like initially he confessed to the crime because I think the police like threatened to involve his wife in it as well because she had like the jewelry and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just very curious to see I'm very curious to know why he did get parole in 83 though. When he was on the stand for his first trial, he was just like, oh yeah, I was just kidding, by the way. That confession that you got, I didn't mean it. I was just totally just kidding. And so I was actually really curious about this whole coworker situation. Like, how the fuck did the coworker, one, did they stage this whole being possessed thing? I mean, they probably did. Two, how did they get all the information? And then three, why did they do it in this manner? Like, if she did have information about who murdered her coworker, why do this whole thing where it's like, I was possessed, I was seeing the dead and communicating with them, and then all this shit, you know, like why not just go to the police and just say something about it? So we did a little bit of background digging on the coworker, and so the coworker was actually fired from the hospital. This is the coworker that was possessed. She was actually fired from the hospital, and apparently these psychic symptoms that she was having actually happened, I think, like on the same day that she lost her job. Sources also said that she was scared of Alan Showery for some reason. Apparently, he complained about her work, although I don't know if his complaints directly led to her being fired. But yeah, apparently, like, you know, they had some sort of like animosity at work. But the other weird thing that also came out was that the person that was possessed, her husband said that the three of them didn't know each other. But there were sources that said that he complained of her work and that she was scared of him. I don't know. That part is a little bit wishy-washy, but you know, the people that were possessed, the husband or the wife that was possessed and the husband that told the cop, they actually wrote a book about this. I don't think I'm gonna read the book though, but I might read a little synopsis summary just to see like what else they said. Cause like I wonder if they did this with the mindset of like, you know what? My coworker died, but like maybe I can gain something out of this. I don't know. This is just me being very skeptical and just thinking people are just, you know, just optimistic, opportunistic. Sorry, not optimistic. Just thinking people are. I mean, like if they worked in the same hospital, I wonder if like the whole show tickets or get tickets for AS, I wonder if that was revealed to the public. I would assume not, but maybe back then the police weren't very good at keeping their information like tight-lipped, right? So maybe the coworker made a connection. It was like, oh, AS, maybe it's Alan Showery. I mean, I know this guy. Maybe it was him that did it. Maybe she completely guessed, you know, and it ended up being him. Yo, what's up, Ben? How are you doing today? Hello. But yeah, the crazy thing was that apparently the reason why he robbed Teresita to begin with was because he wanted to, you know, he needed money to pay for the bills. But when he robbed her, he only got $30. That's it. He got $30 and he grabbed a handful of jewelry. But he didn't even end up selling the jewelry because maybe it wasn't even worth that much. He ended up giving like 2 of the jewelry to his wife, right? She had the ring and she had the pendant. So did he even get anything much out of this after doing all this? I don't know. But he didn't even serve like more than like 5 years, even though he's on parole and shit. But yeah, it's crazy. I thought this was pretty, a little crazy interesting, you know. Because I do wonder what the fuck happened with the couple? Did they really think they were possessed, or did they make it up, or did they want to help with the investigation? They just didn't know how to go about it. And instead they decided to make this really weird phony baloney thing about being possessed and shit. I don't know. I think it's really odd and weird. But yeah, that is the case of Teresita Basa. And her killer might be amongst you right now, walking free. But he served his time though, so hopefully he's changed. I hope to do more of these because sometimes when I'm up late at night, I come across some very interesting true crime stuff and I just want to share with you guys. So thanks for being here.